Climate change, childcare and the budget deficit to take centre stage as Australia welcomes a new Prime Minister. James Packer and the rest of the Crown Resort shareholders agree to be sold to private equity, and the Star loses its long-term chair. It's Monday, the 23rd of May, 2022. Welcome to Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael. What an incredible weekend. What an incredible election.
Oh, that was an extraordinary evening on Saturday night. I know that we were talking last week about would you have a result on Saturday night? Kind of would it still be kind of going on right through the night and would we kind of be going to bed without knowing who the Prime Minister is? And it made for some cracking viewing on Saturday night, didn't it?
It sure did. In fact, I've got to tell you, my son had a bit of a party here with some of his 50 close friends, and these are a bunch of kids in year 12 who really weren't that interested in the election. Yeah. I actually reckon 6 or 7 of them at different times came upstairs to where I was sitting and watched the election with me. I mean, odd.
Really?
For a 17-year-old to do that. Yes, but they're all, maybe they're just placating me, trying to be nice to me because I was hosting the party.
You'd let them stay longer if they showed a bit of interest, yeah.
That's right. They were having it go forever. But yeah, it was interesting that these guys were all into it and they were really interested in the independents and they didn't have any time for Scott Morrison or Anthony Albanese. Now, having said that, none of them could vote, or one of them could, but the others were underage. But they were just really interested in stuff like climate change. Yeah. It was a real eye-opener for me.
Well, I think I don't know if you ended up flicking between the various channels on Saturday night. I know I kind of jumped between them all night, but I was just hanging out to see what Nine did with their animation.
Oh, what did they do?
On how they would farewell sitting members who were booted out. Because in the past, they've had a big boot swing in. In the past, they've had someone dropping into a shark tank. This time, they put them all on a conveyor belt, like basically a baggage carousel at an airport. And they had an animation of a robot there playing a ukulele. And one by one, the suitcase containing the image of the MP who'd been voted out, the suitcase would close and the robot would take a swing at the suitcase with the ukulele and send them flying off into the distance. It was all class.
Wow. All class.
Anyway, look, we digress. We actually have quite a lot to talk about today, and you've got a great interview coming up after the show. And you're speaking to Roger Montgomery Investment Management, basically about how difficult it is to invest at the moment.
Yeah, nothing's safe at the moment. That's the message out of this morning's interview, which is a great one with Roger.
All right. So the main story this morning is, of course, no surprise, Anthony Albanese increasingly likely now to be able to form majority government, with the latest counting predicting the ALP will reach the 76 seats needed to form government in its own right.
Yes, and the crossbench could be a massive 16 people, including up to 4 Greens. I still can't believe I'm saying that. My prediction on Friday was, we already had 5, 2 to 3 extras maybe. Well, blown out of the water, that prediction, that's for sure. There's still a way to go, so it might not end up quite at 16, but certainly that is the big news from one of the most remarkable elections ever. Peter Dutton is the favourite to become leader of the Liberal Party. Congratulations to Anthony Albanese, of course, and the Labor Party. The new Prime Minister is expected to be sworn in today. Michael, the election was a calamity for the Liberal Party. It was actually a pretty poor showing for the Labor Party, but of course they get to govern.
Yes, indeed. But Sean, from a policy perspective, what does the result mean from now?
Well, the two parties didn't actually differ on too much, unlike 2019, but the success of the so-called Teal candidates and the incredible primary vote of the Greens means a few things will be front and centre over the next 3 years. Number one, climate change. The big parties ignored it during the campaign and they got found out. The ALP cannot afford to not get going on carbon reduction initiatives. The climate change debate got a whole new life on Saturday. Number 2 for me, Michael, is women. The success of non-aligned women was extraordinary, and issues such as childcare and aged care will get a much better run in this parliament. It's about time. Number 3, the federal government will get an anti-corruption body, and corruption in politics will be under the spotlight like never before. And for me, number 4, Michael, we actually might end up with a more transparent parliament. If Labor don't get those 76 seats, but they rule a hung parliament, then you might actually find a more transparent Parliament because everything needs to be debated. That's not always a bad thing. Julia Gillard, for example, did it very, very successfully.
Now, Sean, the other big question, and particularly for a business podcast like Fear and Greed, is what does it all mean now for markets?
Well, the election's over, so that will be appreciated. That'll help the mood. Labor's spending promises are definitely slightly higher than the Liberals. That might cause some consternation among traders. The big question really is whether Labor and those crossbenchers will be prepared to repair the budget, which obviously was destroyed by COVID. That factor will probably weigh on markets more than anything else. Now, the coalition and Scott Morrison was very proud of the unemployment rate by the time they got to Saturday night. But remember, inflation is out of hand. Interest rates are rising. There is a huge federal deficit out there. It is not going to be easy for the new government.
Sean, it was 6 weeks, a pretty long campaign. It got pretty ugly at times as well. Are you pleased that's all over? It's all behind us now.
Well, what I'm really pleased, I am pleased it's over, to be honest. I think campaigns do drag a bit, but it is like a fresh start. Now, quite apart from whether you voted Coalition or Labor or Independent or Green or United Australia Party, what we're seeing from today is a new government and a bunch of new issues that will become centre stage. Those things I was talking about, childcare, aged care, climate change. I actually reckon that's really exciting because it's different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And provides plenty of fodder for podcasts like this, doesn't it?
Exactly.
All right. Now, how did local markets finish up on Friday?
Well, the S&P ASX 200 finished up 1.2% to 7,146 points. For the full week, the market ended up 1%. That's the first time it's had a weekly rise in over a month. The key reason on Friday was China reducing interest rates. It was a very good day for the tech stocks, led by REA Group, which rose 4%. WiseTech Global and Xero both finished up nearly 3%. Consumer discretionary stocks did well after a sell-off earlier in the week. Fortescue Metals jumped more than 3%. BHP was up 2.3%, Rio Tinto was up 1.7%. Aristocrat Leisure had yet another good day, up more than 4%. The banks were good, so too the retailers and indeed most of the miners. Energy stocks were the underperformers after oil prices came off a bit on concerns about lower economic growth. Woodside Petroleum fell around 3.5%. Santos closed down 1.7%.
What about Wall Street?
Well, it officially entered bear territory over the weekend, but paired losses by the end of the trading day, so ended down around 1%, not quite in bear territory. A bear market is when a bourse falls at least 20% from its peak. Now, Wall Street peaked in early January, and at one point in weekend trading, it was down 20%, but as we stand now, it's down about 19.5%.
And the dollar?
It starts the week trading at almost 70.5 US cents.
All right, big start. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. All right, Sean, there's plenty happening beyond the election and some big news that's been around. Crown Resorts shareholders, including James Packer, have voted for Blackstone's $8.9 billion bid.
Yes, but it's not quite a done deal because state-based regulators have not yet granted approval to Blackstone to own 3 casinos in Australia. Chair Ziggy Switowski told shareholders on Friday that it was in the best interests of Crown shareholders to go ahead with the vote, even though Blackstone hadn't been okayed. If the regulators give Blackstone the green light, gaming billionaire James Packer will walk away with about $3.3 billion in cash for his 38% or near 38%. After a 20-year involvement with the Crown business, established originally by his father, Kerry. The casino giant has been hit with 3 government inquiries in the past couple of years. All found that Mr. Packer needed to cut ties with the company after finding it facilitated money laundering, disregarded the welfare of China-based staff, and partnered with junket operators linked to organised crime triads. The end of an era.
Yeah, certainly is. And staying in the same sector, the executive chair of Star Entertainment, John O'Neill, has resigned. This is just ahead of him giving evidence into the inquiry into whether the gaming giant should hold a licence in New South Wales.
Yes, the one-time boss of the Australian Rugby Union and veteran of the Star board resigned as executive chairman, a role he took up when CEO Matt Beckier stepped down in March. Mr. O'Neill will step down from the board on a yet-to-be-agreed-upon date. It means at least 10 Star directors or executives who are at the company have resigned or committed to do so following this inquiry. Now, the inquiry itself so far has found that the Star set up a secret gambling room for criminal gang-linked junket operator Sun City, hid Sun City's illegal cash cage from the New South Wales casino regulator, misled the big banks, and might have failed to pay state taxes. It's not that surprising, Michael, that Mr. O'Neill has stepped down. His evidence this week will be very interesting.
All right, now this is an interesting one, Sean, for those of us who are into their online shopping and religiously open all of the deal emails that they receive. Woolworths has bid for 80% of ASX-listed mydeal.com.au, not owned by management.
Yes, and the retail giant is prepared to pay $1.05 a share. That's about 40 cents a share more than its closing price ahead of the bid. It's an attempt by Woolworths to boost its e-commerce offering to customers who, post-lockdowns, keep buying things online. People like you, Michael, specifically. 20% of the company will continue to be owned by key management. My Deal listed in October 2020. It benefited from the e-tailing boom. Its share price did really well, but then it fell back sharply and it's actually trading well below its listing price. This is a bit of a get-out-of-jail card for shareholders because the $1.05 is above the $1 listing price.
Now, Sean, AGL Energy's shareholder, billionaire Mike Cannon-Brookes, has provided information to shareholders on why he thinks the energy giant shouldn't demerge.
Yes, that vote is due in the middle of next month, and on Friday, Mr. Cannon-Brookes' Grok Ventures argued AGL Energy, as it is, could capture 30% of the electricity retail market by closing its coal power stations by 2035 and offer customers 100% renewable energy. It's critical of Chair Peter Botten, saying he lacks the vision to lead the electricity supplier through the transition to low-carbon energy. Mr. Cannon-Brookes holds more than 11% of the company. He's lobbying other shareholders at the moment. It's getting dirty.
Australian coal prices, Sean, hit record levels late last week, and this sent share prices higher.
Yes, major buyers of Aussie coal, including Japan, are winding down purchases from Russian sources, and so demand is up. Australian coal fetched a record $442.50 US a tonne last week. While bans on Russian exports underpin the price rises, there's also been heat waves in India. That's added to global demand. Two of the biggest winners on the market have been Yancoal and Whitehaven. Now, Yancoal's share price has more than doubled this year. While the broader market has actually gone backwards, Whitehaven Coal's share price is up 90%.
All right, a few smaller stories. Sean, Tabcorp Holdings demerged business, the Lottery Corporation, great name, tells you exactly what it does. It's going to begin trading tomorrow.
Yes, on Friday, Tabcorp secured court approval for the $11 billion demerger, which was approved by shareholders on May 12.
Chalice Mining's share price jumped 20% on Friday.
On Thursday night, it said it had received approvals to conduct exploration drilling in the north of Western Australia. When it came to trade on Friday, shareholders loved it, up 20%. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. But at the other end of the market, Unibail Rodamco Westfield fell 9%.
Yes, it had jumped the previous day when it said it was going to roll out the Westfield brand into Spain, Sweden and Poland. Got a kick along then, but certainly was sold off hard on Friday.
All right, moving on to overseas news. And one of Anthony Albanese's first jobs as the incoming Prime Minister will be to head to Tokyo for a meeting of the Quad Partnership tomorrow, where it's expected to unveil a maritime initiative.
Yes, the initiative is aimed at curbing illegal fishing in the Indo-Pacific. At the meeting will be US President Joe Biden, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They all get to meet Anthony Albanese. What a treat for them. According to the US, China is responsible for 95% of the illegal fishing in the Indo-Pacific. According to the Financial Times, the grouping will also soon include an initiative called the Partners of Pacific, which aims to help Pacific Island nations. That is a flashpoint here in Australia at the moment, of course, because the Solomon Islands has done a security pact deal with China. Again, something that Mr. Albanese will have to start thinking about very quickly.
Yeah, geez, talk about hitting the ground running. Isn't that incredible to have the election on Saturday night and then to be heading off to a pretty significant international meeting on Tuesday?
Yep. Yeah.
Now, Sean, there is growing concern around the world about the outbreak of monkeypox.
Yes, Joe Biden last night said everyone should be concerned about it. It's a rare and potentially deadly cousin of the smallpox virus. It's mostly found in regions of Africa, but there have now been cases confirmed in Europe, North America, Israel, and here in Australia. Smallpox was eradicated more than 40 years ago, which in itself is pretty incredible, but it meant people stopped vaccinating against pox viruses, including monkeypox. So that's why they think it is now flowing to other parts of the world.
All right, and how about this one, Sean? Japanese authorities are trying to recover $362,000 of COVID aid that was mistakenly sent to just one person.
Yes, and the problem was that the person was a gambler and he gambled the money away.
Oh, God.
So the 24-year-old unemployed man from Japan's West apparently spent all the money at online gaming sites. He was arrested last week, but he just hasn't got any of the money left. The mistake was made when COVID relief was sent to 463 low-income households, or at least it was supposed to be sent to 463 low-income households, but it all went to the person whose name was first on the list. So this person got $362,000, had a good time, and all the money's gone.
All right, now up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview, and today you're speaking to Roger Montgomery from Montgomery Investment Management.
Yeah, what really Roger is getting at is just these volatile markets, the safe haven which bond investing traditionally isn't playing that role at the moment. So he talks about how to think about investing in volatile times and investing in the market as it is now. A great way of explaining this sort of thing. So it's well worth a listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're there, make sure you listen to Stephen Koukoulas, our resident economist in Fear and Greed, The Week Ahead, which is out every Monday. Don't miss that one. They are both coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform, or you can head to fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Monday, the 23rd of May, 2022. Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.